So, ma'am, my first question is like, what inspired you to become a filmmaker? Ma'am? Was there a particular film or like something happened? That's why.
I think we didn't imagine we could make films because उस time video नहीं होता था. It used to be big बड़ा पर्दा ना. But I grew up in Lucknow. But when I came to Bombay, we did a course after my college, in which one 16 print used to come every week, and it used to get projected. We used to project it. So वो देख के suddenly you see the medium थोड़े पास से also, and we had a very good film teacher called Jarumula. तो ये सब के होते होते I got interested, and then somehow I diverted into films, you can say.
Ma'am, which course you did?
It was called Social Communications Media, SCM, in Sophia College in Bombay. Still exists.
And ma'am, what was your parents' reaction? Like you wanted to become a
No,
filmmaker?
no, no. I mean, in some ways, in like like my family was fairly liberal, and maybe it was easier for the girls in some ways to make these other type of choices, which were not so career, you know, which didn't seem so certain. You let the girls explore kind of a thing. ऐसा कुछ शायद था. So they were fine with it.
So, ma'am, like during your course, you get interested in documentaries, or when you got interested in
After this, I
documentaries?
did FTII also. 2 years later, I went to Film and Television Institute afterwards. Documentary for a long time, I didn't, because in FTII we were really taught fiction mostly, and documentary is actually quite hard to do because it's not fixed. It's not fixed कि क्या होगा, कैसे बनेगी, उसका shape कैसे होगा. So on the one hand, while the material is before you, to make a nice, good documentary is quite hard, I think. I used to be scared of it. Also, I used to be scared of talking to people, asking questions. So fiction seemed a little safer. So it took me a long time to get down to doing. But actually, there was more opportunity to do documentary. Um, so I had to get over my hesitations of how will I do this form, how will I interview. But and then I learned and understood much more about documentary. I can't say I've done so much or that I know so much, but whatever. And it is a very interesting form. So yeah, मतलब उसमें बहुत possibilities हैं और आप बहुत बाहर निकलते हो अपने दायरे से, बहुत कुछ देखते हो, यही नहीं कि जो आपके दिमाग में चल रहा है उसी पे कुछ बना रहे हो, which was lovely. You have to get out, even to make a good fiction. I think you have to step out, see the world, experience things, think about them, feel things, dream. Then you probably make. No?
Ma'am, in FTI, like it was screenplay and direction course.
It was direct, yeah. Yeah, we wrote our own screenplays and direct.
How long was the course, ma'am?
3 years.
Okay. So you completed the course in 3 years?
Yeah, yeah. 3 years and 2 months. Yeah. उसके बाद, yeah, I know that they say that वो लंबा होने लगा, but that's also because it's both things that happened. I think in institutions also they let the institution, you kind of neglect the institution. I feel that's also why these things start happening. Yeah. It's not just ki the students do this and that also eventually also happens, but it's not just that, I think. Yeah.
Ma'am, in today's age, like the phone is easily accessible, the editing software is accessible. So, what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on film school? Like, if somebody wants,
I mean, it's a wonderful time because you can make. I think film school, for me, I mean, this is from a different time, but it gives you a kind of silence to develop something. It's not you're not, everything is not, so like everything is otherwise virtual. You're putting up things and then how many likes, and there's a lot of anxiety, but I feel it's good to have a little more quiet, to work with a crew, to work on the ground before you put out things outside. So it's a kind of luxury, you could say, in a good way. Yeah. I mean, even then, I think I used to feel ki you should have a kind of sanctuary where you can learn things. No, of course, it's not necessary, and less so maybe today, but it's a choice you can make, I think. It's a good choice to make.
Okay. So, ma'am, before making like your films, so did you assist it somewhere?
Yeah, yeah, I've assisted when I was younger. I have assisted on some features, on some docus. I've written for people. I'm still writing for someone. So yeah, I like working with other people. Mhm. Yeah, it's only recently in the past 6, 7 years that I'm doing more of my own work. Yeah, yeah.
Ma'am, let's talk about Ji Karta Tha. So, the how the idea came, ma'am, for the story and what was your experience in making it?
I think that time I was very young, and film was like a new medium, and then you things that have left an impression on you, you try to recreate them. No, um, and when you recreate them, you realize they'll all change when you recreate them. You'll have to make a different story. It was very hard for me actually because film, matlab, it's a medium that makes you feel that you can bring back memory, but you can't actually. It changes the memory, ना? Like उसकी दूसरी कहानी बनानी पड़ती है क्योंकि एक्टर भी अलग होता है, जगह भी अलग होती है. So I think in that process, of course, it was very much from impressions I had had of my, you know, people I knew back in Lucknow where I grew up, things I had seen, things I had felt, things which bothered me. Um, the thing that I learned to do was to try and tell a small story. And those days I was reading this book I used to keep taking from life, just trying to copy exactly. And then I read some really funny story in which, no, not a great, whatever, in which a guy used to keep doing this. And then every time he did it, he'd lose a friend. Obviously, ना क्योंकि उसमें उसकी कहानी लिख दी, उसकी कहानी लिख दी. Then he had to go to a psychologist who said कि यार ऐसे तो नहीं, and combine two people. Someone had told me also, combine two people. I said, but that's not the truth, kind of. He said, no, I can't. Ye. Oh, then once he meets one very beautiful girl, they fall in love. Ye, wo, so much that he forgets to write. And then it's a very stupid ending. But slowly, he comes to know that that girl has been planted by the psychologist to say कि देखो nothing is true. पता नहीं ऐसा कुछ था. So I felt, but somehow that sometimes an idiotic story can have a lot of effect on you. So this story had quite an effect on me. I thought सीखना पड़ेगा. And I was reading this book by Gabriel Garcia Marquez called Strange Pilgrims. They were short stories. In those stories, I suddenly could make out what he's doing, that he's exaggerating some details, like uh, the boat enters Rome and there's a body in the sea और उसमें इतना बड़ा फूल लगा हुआ है. मतलब some strange, it's not impossible that it happens, but it's on the edge of the strange. And she's highlighting an image, trail of her blood in the snow was another story कि बर्फ में एक लड़की का खून उंगली से गिरता है ना, and you suddenly and उससे वो मतलब छोटी छोटी चीजों को उठा के वो. So I think I learned that from there and I tried to put that in the film with the wool कि वो ऊन ऊन मतलब मेरे दिमाग में तो ऐसा था कि वो ऊन में पूरी दुनिया उलझ जाएगी. I didn't do it visually like that, or I couldn't, or whatever, but in my head I had found an element which I had learned from reading these stories. Ki you take an element from that landscape and push it up. That's what I tried to do. And then, I mean, out of the material that I felt or that I knew, the things that bothered me, like this girl, her dilemmas, my own feeling of it's not about whether she's nice or not, but she has a point. And what the hell, like that kind of indignation you feel. Na? So I wanted to keep it like that. I didn't want to make her very कि you'll feel कि अरे कितनी sweet है और इसके साथ ऐसा हो रहा है. Not like that, because that's not how I had sensed or experienced it. But someone who feels like a difficult person. I mean, it's nice to be young because you have more empathy in some ways and sympathy. You have emotional strength, na? And you understand what's happening to someone. Now, sometimes I think I have less empathy. In the sense, I'm too busy thinking about myself to be as empathetic to another person. But to be a storyteller, you must have, I think, empathy and strength to be able to take that other person's complications. So yeah, between that little wool and this girl and that chewing gum, if you've seen the film, there's a story about, yeah, that had happened to I used to be friends with this boy when we were very little, who was very studious. And I used to very admire him. He's very studious, and he used to make things and all. Like his younger brother and I were friends, but then we used to be told कि जब ये छोटा था तो बहुत he also was very juggly and all. We never believed it. And then someone said कि फिर एक बार he cut his hair himself. और वो इतना बुरा hair cut था कि he didn't want to go out only. और उस चक्कर में वो पढ़ाकू बन गया. So this was a story that had stayed, and then I combined it with another friend who had once told me in college कि उसके बाल में chewing gum लग गया, and she's a सरदारनी, तो उसको अपने लंबे बाल काटने पड़े थे. Otherwise she never cut her hair, but किसी का chewing gum लग गया था, तो etc. So वो जोड़ जाड़ के वो ऐसे बन गई थी.
Ma'am, how much time it took to like complete the film?
It's so many years ago. I honestly can't say, but there used to be a fixed time we were given. I think we must have been given about 10 days for shoot and all, or a week to 10 days of shooting time. फिर फिक्स्ड नंबर ऑफ एडिटिंग शिफ्ट एंड फिक्स्ड नंबर, तो मुझे लगता है 2.5-3 महीने में बन गई होगी वो. 2.5-3 महीने से ज्यादा तो क्या ही लगे. मतलब स्क्रिप्टिंग टाइम तो हम उतना ध्यान नहीं दे. मतलब वी कांट, आई डोंट नो हाउ टू काउंट द स्क्रिप्टिंग टाइम. दैट वुड हैव परहैप्स बीन लॉन्गर. प्रीवियस एक्सरसाइज करते समय हो सकता है. So another 1.5 months for that. At least 1.5 months. 2 months. 2 months for scripting, I'm sure. I mean, would have taken, yeah. और काम करते हुए थोड़े से. हाँ.
Ma'am, another film I want to talk about is The Outsider, which is in YouTube and PSVT channel. Great film, ma'am. And
Thank you.
ma'am, how the idea came and what was your experience? And during that film, I can see a lot of animation, painting, photos. So, ma'am,
Yeah,
how do you
yeah,
like it?
yeah. So, I was trying to come back to making films on my own after very long. I had been teaching and earning like that, and so I first quit my job, and then I thought देखा जाएगा kind of ना, मतलब कुछ तो बनाना ही पड़ेगा, etc. Also I had bought myself a camera, थोड़ा equipment भी था हाथ में. पहले नहीं होता था. Digital was a big thing for many of us ना, कि ये चीज अब संभव है. You can make your own films. In some ways, then I feel that we had the film school kind of, जिसमें आप पकड़ पकड़ के सीखते हैं, and then digital comes. I like that process. तो हम बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं चांसेस शूट करेंगे, या बहुत मतलब our training perhaps can make us a little more focused. But so I tried to think of things that I was interested in, and this I had been making dolls for a while. I did another short film. I should have sent it to you. मैं भेजती हूँ तुमको अभी recently. That is fully animation with dolls, which I have made. I It's called समझौता.
Pushkar Puran have you also did as an
नहीं
animation?
नहीं, उसमें हाँ, उसमें मतलब कमल called me over. None of our animation got used in the film, but we were called for animation, तो हमें credit मिला. उस film में कहाँ है animation? But I've done a small film, an animated, a bunch of us have done. I mean, I directed it, called Samjhauta, which I'll send to you. It didn't strike me that it's not in the public domain. It's still, just now it's not in the public domain. It will come, I'm sure. अभी वो थोड़ा फेस्टिवल में इधर उधर घूम रही है, इसलिए. हाँ हाँ. तो anyway, so because I'd been making dolls and working with my hands, doing things with textile, I'd been trying to do some anime. I used to think कि इसके जरिए भी तो कहानी बन सकती है. कुछ कुछ मेरे दिमाग में था. I was also teaching in a place called Srishti in Bangalore, जिसमें टेक्सटाइल भी था, फिल्म भी थी, डिजाइन भी था. तो आई यूज टू बी क्यूरियस, क्योंकि फिल्म is such a virtual medium. I'm curious about people who work with their hands also. I like that to see people who work with their hands. And I used to make, abhi bhi I make some teda meda type of, kapde ke katran se things. So people often, because it's a, you don't usually see an adult doing these things. So if they know someone else, they'll always put you in touch. Ki, there is this person, like that. So someone had put me in touch with Milan, who was her friend, the second doll maker. And Francoise, I live in Bangalore. So abhi I'm in Rohtak, but yeah. तो उसको मैंने अखबार में उसकी गुड़िया देख के ना वेरी मूव्ड, बिकॉज देयर वाज वन चिपको वाली गुड़िया, वो पेड़ के कटे हुए पेड़ को वो हक कर रही है. तो आई थॉट कि अरे व्हाट अ वंडरफुल डॉल मेकर. एंड देन आई रियलाइज शी लिव्स इन बैंगलोर, एंड दैट उस पेपर में उसका नंबर भी लिस्टेड है. आई वाज शॉक्ड, सो आई कॉल्ड हर जस्ट आउट ऑफ द ब्लू, एंड आई वेंट टू सी हर एग्जीबिशन. Uh, and then I started trying to propose, like उस time PSBT was a little more active. So I tried to propose, think कि मैं इन दो डॉल मेकर्स पे, मतलब I thought फिल्म तो बनानी है अब, और जो जो हाथ में है और जो इंटरेस्ट आ रहा है उससे फिल्म पकड़ ही लेनी है. इट टुक मी अ वेरी लॉन्ग टाइम टू मेक दैट फिल्म एक्चुअली, बिकॉज उसको बिठाने में फिर बहुत टाइम लगा. Means because I wasn't sure what connected them apart from the fact that they both made dolls. But I felt कि I didn't think so. For the first time, see, when you're in film school, you don't think कि producer क्या सोच रहा है ना? But for the first time, I thought कि I don't think PSBT will give me money कि एक doll maker पे ऐसी film बना दो. Which is not even, it's not talking about some great issues ये वो जो भी. But I feel there is something in it like that, And while Francoise is talking about issues and something, Milan's is of a different, just an imaginative, which interests me also a lot. Both things actually interested me. So yeah, and the reason I did stop motion, I mean, एक तो I wanted to do stop motion. I'd been trying to do stop motion. तो तुमको जो काम मिलता है, तुम जो करना चाहते हो, उसको भी उसमें जोड़ने की कोशिश करते हो ना. It's someone once told me it's like fighting the brief. You have a brief and you keep fighting with the brief to so little bit that. तो उस चक्कर में that happened. Yeah. So and Milan's dolls वो कागज की बनाती है. You see little ones ना. And children used to keep coming in and out of a house, and I noticed कि the children don't think that these are great dolls because they are so simply made. But what it inspires in the children is they start competing with us. They also make and they bring and they go, Auntie Hamar. And I thought, gosh, that is wonderful actually. She's not trying to say, look what a wonderful thing I have made. She's choosing to exist in a way which gives her pleasure. She loves making and she does it with a lot of intensity and ये वो. But बच्चे भी आके उसका कागज उठा के भी ले जाएंगे ये वो. And those little dolls look so lively that it was just fun to animate them because वो उनकी जान उनमें वो जान है. Yeah, Francois ke, because the dolls ke armatures and all were stitched, so I would have liked to make one gesture. Just क्योंकि वो उसके dolls के gestures होते हैं ना, मुद्राओं में है, like ऐसे कर रही है या ऐसे कर रही है ना, they are fixed gestures. So I would have liked that one movement just to see कि gesture कैसे बनता है. But यहाँ पे वो stitched था, like I couldn't open it. Otherwise, there are wires, so technically you could have opened them, but I would have had to open all those stitches. I mean, and she was also older. I was a little bit in awe of her. Na? I didn't know मैं कैसे बोलूं कि इसको खोल दूं क्या. तो so depending on the temperament of each person and how I approach them, that sort of appeared in the film also. I think not just me. Like my camera person loved Francoise's dolls. So the way he shot them, so between us, and I loved playing with Milan's dolls. He understood less Milan's dolls. He understood. So वो balance हमारे crew में हो गया. The sound person loved, the camera person may not have loved Milan's doll, but he loved Milan's cat. so, so everything came, that's how a film gets made. It's not like me just sort of running this show. I edited a lot of the film. I did the rough cut and it took me very long. And then this wonderful young woman, Lavanya, came and in a much shorter time, we did that final fine cut. Yeah, she was really great. So, yeah.
Ma'am, there is a scene with photos of dolls where they are, I mean, they are speaking. They're speaking also. There's photo and they're speaking with sound design, I guess. There's photos and they're speaking, talking to
वो
each other.
the तो ऐसे ऐसे करके आवाजें निकाल वो मेरी आवाज है that's why I can take it out so I mean because yeah when we were editing in fact Lavanya I think said कि इसको तो थोड़ी आवाज देनी चाहिए ना तो we just picked up one little recorder और वही खड़े खड़े we just put it in like what is the feeling you get when you see these kind of what are they saying and then I just did that kind of sound you know like this one is doing that that one is doing this I must have played I have played a lot with dolls as a kid I suppose so it's a training I can say from my early childhood.
And
Yeah,
ma'am, talking about the issue, there is a photo of a girl where she tells the story like she got disappeared.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, how was your reaction, ma'am, when hearing?
I mean, it's a difficult thing to shoot and put down also. But I think I learned from it made me think ki why did Francois make the doll? Francois made the doll in a way because she couldn't help the girl. Like that memory is troubled her. And she's tried to make a gentle doll, you know, where the girl is intact and she's playing with the so I and we all know this feeling that कभी कभी हम नहीं कर पाते हैं कोई चीज किसी के लिए तो वो चीज चुभती भी है हमें what I found very moving was that she told me also कि हम कुछ नहीं कर पाए and she made that little girl also so we tried to get both feelings in, I think, into the edit. And I remember there was a point where we thought इस पे थोड़ा pause करें and I remember saying नहीं इस पे pause नहीं करेंगे because this is what happens. We feel it and then we move on. So let's cut it like that. That's not to say that it's good or bad, but that is how मतलब that was the that is how we are so let's put it out like that कि हमको चुभती है चीज और फिर हम उससे आगे बढ़ते हैं you know तो वो हम इतना गैप वहां छोड़ देंगे तो उसमें क्या हो जाएगा इनफैक्ट आगे बढ़ने से शायद वो चीज तुमको वापस आके चुभेगी कि you weren't allowed to absorb it you know because perhaps you can't actually run away from things they will return ये तो मैं अब ऐसे बोल रही हूँ बट उस टाइम द डिसीजन वाज जस्ट कि लेट्स नॉट क्रिएट अ पॉज आफ्टर दिस लेट्स मूव बिकॉज वी डू मूव थोड़ा फॉल्स सा हो जाएगा पॉज ना
So, ma'am, let's talk about Cinema City, ma'am, which you have co-directed with other directors.
मतलब दैट फर्स्ट बिट आई डायरेक्टेड व्हाट यू सी दैट्स माय फिल्म दैट सिनेमा का सपना देखा है एंड धनंजय कुलकर्णी द सेकंड फिल्म someone else directed
So, ma'am, what was the experience like?
मतलब it was I was living in Goregaon East. It was a film about Goregaon East. It gave me a chance to explore the place and understand the world that I was living in, and to make a film about it. So,
Any difficulties, ma'am? And how big was the crew and how much time it took
हमेशा
you?
these क्रूज उसमें भी हमको शायद हफ्ते भर का टाइम मिला था शूट करने के लिए हफ्ते भर या 8 दिन हाँ टाइम तो छोटा ही था द थिएटर ब्रोक डाउन बिफोर तो द गर्ल शर्मिला शी कॉल्ड मी एंड शी सेड तो हम कैमरा लेके बिकॉज वी डिडंट हैव आवर ओन कैमरा सो वी गॉट द कैमरा फ्रॉम द प्रोड्यूसर एंड शॉट द थिएटर का ब्रेकिंग डाउन विथ हर and then I had kind of scripted like you do script documentary also na you try and I mean I do everyone doesn't but you do your research and then when you have any kind of a script then you can improve on your script anyway on documentary on the ground you'll change things but एक चीजों का कैसे बांधोगे उसका क्या फ्लो होगा वो पकड़ना मेरे लिए अच्छा ही रहा है like anyway I don't make very long films so these are short films and I they are little in to my mind they are intricate उसमें ये भी होगा यहाँ से ये भी होगा तो वो बंधेगा कि नहीं उस चीज का को स्क्रिप्ट करना हैज बीन यूजफुल फॉर मी यू नो लाइक anyway I'm doing research I'm talking to the people I'm getting a sense of what are the things I might be asking them about so I do try and arrange it all in my head and on paper yeah and then try and shoot it and then things change, and then it's okay to change them. Yeah. Even in fiction, it's the same. I feel you have to know your short breakdown. फिर आप floor पे जाएंगे तो आप उसको बदल सकते हो. But to think कि हम, that's how I see it. It works well. I like to do and redo and redo. That's my method of, yeah, working.
Ma'am, are you currently doing any other projects right now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I finished this one small animation. I'll send it to you. It was my completely lost track. And there's another one which I was doing for the past couple of years. I've been trying to do. उसके funds नहीं है ये वो, so उसकी shooting अभी complete कर ली है. वो थोड़ी लंबी film है. Yeah. So I'm working on that just now.
And ma'am, if you need some if somebody wants to work you as an assistant, so how they can approach you?
They can approach me provided there is a project and there is money. Of course, I'd be very happy. Yes, undoubtedly. I mean, yeah, it's always wonderful to work. I mean, I've been working a lot with young people lately and enjoying it a lot. So I also teach maybe because of that, but it's nice to not be a teacher primarily, but also a filmmaker, but also a teacher. And then it's the same group of like young people who seem to, then I perhaps I'm able to work differently with my students and differently with my crew because of doing both these things, I hope. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Ma'am, if you could recommend few films and filmmakers, your favorite films and filmmakers. Ma'am.
My favorite films and from very old. They'll be very old filmmakers. Let me think. I would say the Ajantrik by Ritwik Ghatak. I love that film. It's playful and I find it very beautiful. Gleaners and I by Agnes Varda because I learned a lot about documentary and what it can do from that film. And my friend Paromita Vora's Unlimited Girls is another film that taught me a lot about. Then the little film which is almost not known by another friend called Billi Ka Panja, which I hope is still on YouTube, which a friend of mine, Gauri Patwardhan, had done with children and a printmaking, which sort of eased up like, otherwise fiction teaching is very tight. No? And you see someone's work which is light and loose and then it inspires you. Yeah, I mean, I can talk about a lot of friends' films, Vela Negi's Daएं या बाएं. If have you seen it? It's a wonderful film set in Uttarakhand. I'll send you the link to that if you like. Uh, I like a lightness in work, uh, and yeah, that's quite a few films recommended. Um, Let me think. Yeah, right now I would say these are the films that, like, I mean, these are five, six that and there is a Czech animator called Jan Schwankmeyer whose work I like a lot. उसकी एक फिल्म है एलिस जो एलिस इन वंडरलैंड पे बेस्ड है, जिससे मुझे एनिमेशन की प्रेरणा मिली है बहुत ही ज्यादा मतलब because he moves real objects in real spaces. He's not trying to always create. He moves meat pieces. It's wonderful work actually. And Alice is wonderful because it is a story about Alice in Wonderland. I mean, it's a story of Alice in Wonderland. एक बच्ची के दिमाग के अंदर जाके ना. Yeah, Om Darbadar when I was young, for many of us was a film that showed us our world the way we don't put it on cinema. We know that world, but we don't put it out. So yeah, these are films. And then Kamal Sarup ki Rangbhumi is a film that I like a lot, also because I was part of the process, but I find it very poetic and beautiful. Yeah, these are films that I and recently Chandrayaan करके एक एनिमेशन फिल्म एफटीआई में कुछ स्टूडेंट्स ने बनाई है जो उनके कोर्स का हिस्सा नहीं थी. Chandraheen, I think it's called. Moonless. It's about a bull that runs away on a moonless night. बहुत सुंदर फिल्म है. So I can send you the link, I think safely. I mean, I don't think the filmmaker will mind. If it's, I'll check with him and I'll send you the link. But these are films that I get inspired by films, I think, that don't work on very big scale or budgets, but are very inventive. Are light, give pleasure, think, thinking can also be pleasurable. That's why I like Unlimited Girls. Uh, yeah, work with craft, love, take pleasure in life, even if there is sad, with the sadness also. I mean, really, like, speak with feeling. Yeah, uh, know how to. Yeah, and yeah, I think I like Ozu also a lot. Yeah,
Okay. The last question is, when if somebody wants to become a filmmaker, like what advice would you give to them?
become one. That's the advice I would give. I mean, don't, like, it's helping me to be making enough now to not be so bothered ki is my work doing well or is it not. Matlab, there are two ends of it. And now because of digital, you're in a place, perhaps, not really because everyone has to earn and it's not a joke, the world is getting harder. बट आई एम सेइंग कि जैसे कि पहले लेखक होते थे, आप लिख सकते हैं या मतलब अपने किसी एक ग्रुप के साथ कुछ बना सकते हैं विदाउट ऑलवेज डिपेंडिंग ऑन यू नो नेटफ्लिक्स मुझे पैसा दे रहा है कि फला तो मुझे ये कर रहा है कि ढिका मुझे ये एंड यू कैन फाइंड प्लेटफॉर्म्स इट्स नॉट perhaps perhaps it doesn't feel satisfying, I don't know enough, and I understand if it doesn't to people, but I think it's wonderful because it means that the filmmaker can be like how writers used to be. I mean, poets didn't always get published, but they didn't stop writing poetry. So I think filmmakers need to figure out a way. I heard someone else, another filmmaker, Umesh Kulkarni, say recently कि किसी भी तरह रियाज तो रोज करना पड़ता है. You can't arrive at a film कि तुम जाके अब बना दो. रोज उस पे कुछ थोड़ा थोड़ा लगे. It's like a piece of embroidery ना. महीने लगेंगे उसको. तो don't imagine कि is my idea good enough? Just keep at it, keep at it. I am teaching myself again to do that. So it's not like advice I'm giving you. It's advice I'm giving me also. Yeah, yeah.
And thank you so much, ma'am, for joining.
Thank you.